High Commander Zaxrel stood at the viewport of the Imperial warship Eternal Glory, his iridescent scales gleaming under the soft purple lighting of the bridge. The massive vessel, pride of the Krylonian Empire's Third Fleet, hung in the darkness of unclaimed space like a predator waiting to strike. Before them, a human mining vessel slowly made its way through an asteroid field, its industrial-grade lasers carefully cutting through valuable mineral deposits. Primitive creatures, Zaxrel muttered, his secondary breathing chambers expanding with contempt. Using such crude methods to harvest resources, he turned to his bridge crew, all of whom kept their head frills carefully lowered in deference to his rank. Tell me again why we're allowing these hairless apes to operate so close to our territory. First Officer Val Nim cleared her throat, her datapad clutched tightly in her lower appendages. High Commander, technically this region is unclaimed space. The humans filed proper mining permits with the Galactic Commerce Authority, and their operation is entirely legal. Legal? Zaxrel's scales shifted to a deep crimson. The Krylonian Empire has stood for 10,000 years. We were splitting atoms while these humans were still fighting with pointed sticks. Their permits mean nothing. The bridge fell silent. Even the usual hum of the ship's quantum processors seemed muted, as if the artificial intelligence itself feared drawing attention. Val Nim's scales had taken on a pale, worried hue, but she pressed on. Sir, the Empire's position on human expansion has been clear. As long as they remain outside our established territories. Our territories are whatever I say they are. Zaxrel snapped. Look at them. One vessel, minimal weapons. They don't even have proper shield generators. He gestured at the tactical display, where the mining vessel's specifications scrolled past. Deep Horizon. Even their ship names lack proper dignity. Sir, Val Nim tried one last time. Perhaps we should consult with High Command before. High Command is 20 light-years away, and I am here. Zaxrel's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. The Empire has grown soft, First Officer. In my grandfather's time, we would never have allowed lesser species to operate so boldly near our space. It's time someone reminded humanity of their proper place in the galaxy. He straightened to his full height, nearly 3 meters of gleaming scales and polished ceremonial armor. Battle stations. Power up the main guns. The bridge erupted into controlled chaos as red alert klaxons began to sound. Val Nim's scales had gone almost white. Sir, this is an unauthorized act of aggression against a civilian vessel. The consequences will be nothing. Zaxrel interrupted. One mining ship, First Officer. We'll destroy it, claim they violated our space, and remind everyone why the Krylonian Empire is feared. By the time any investigation occurs, the debris will have scattered across half the asteroid field. His mandibles clicked in what passed for a smile among his species. Besides, humans are notorious for their mining accidents. Who's to say this wasn't simply another industrial tragedy? On the tactical display, the Deep Horizon continued its methodical work, unaware of the warship's intentions. Its industrial lasers carved through another asteroid, the chunks of mineral-rich rock being drawn into its processing bays by magnetic tractor beams. Sir, the weapons officer called out. Main guns charge. We have a firing solution. Zaxrel's scales rippled with pleasure. This would be a glorious moment, one that would remind the galaxy of Krylonian supremacy. Perhaps he'd even be promoted for his initiative in protecting Imperial interests. Fire when ready. Let's show these humans what real power looks like. The Eternal Glory's main guns began to glow with deadly energy. On the mining vessel, there was still no sign they detected the warship's hostile intentions. For a moment, Val Nim considered sending an anonymous warning, but she knew it would be traced back to her console. She could only watch in horror as her commander prepared to commit what could only be called an act of war. Sir, the sensor officer suddenly called out, I'm detecting some unusual readings from the human vessel. Their power output just spiked significantly. Probably just their mining equipment, Zaxrel said dismissively. Fire. The first shot streaked across space, a brilliant lance of energy that would have torn through any normal mining vessel's hull like paper. But at the last possible second, the Deep Horizon's industrial laser swiveled with impossible speed. The beam met something that definitely wasn't meant for mining and split apart into harmless fragments. Zaxrel's scales went from crimson to pale yellow in an instant. What was that? Sir, the sensor officer's voice had risen several octaves. I'm getting readings consistent with military-grade shield technology. And those aren't just mining lasers. There, oh stars above. The Deep Horizon had turned to face them fully now, its industrial equipment realigning into configurations that looked far more weapon-like than any mining tool should. A transmission cut through their communications channel, and a human voice filled the bridge. Krylonian vessel, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the Deep Horizon. I strongly suggest you reconsider your next action very carefully. We're transmitting proof of your unprovoked attack to both human space and a galactic commerce authority. Would you like to explain yourself, or should we demonstrate why attacking the human ship is generally considered a bad idea? Captain Sarah Chen kept her voice steady as she addressed the Krylonian warship, but her fingers were flying across the Deep Horizon's control interface. Around her, her crew worked with practiced efficiency. All pretense of being simple miners dropped like a worn-out disguise. Engineering, talk to me, she called out, watching as the Eternal Glory's weapons began charging for another shot. Chief Engineer Marcus Rodriguez's voice came through clear and confident. They don't know what they're dealing with, Cap. Our mining lasers are actually modified quantum edge cutters. They can slice through battleship armor like butter. We just usually use them on asteroids instead. And our processing bays, already converting to missile tubes. Those magnetic tractors we use for ore collection. Turns out they work just as well for launching kinetic penetrators. Who knew? There was a hint of savage glee in Marcus's voice. The Deep Horizon had been part of humanity's Trojan Horse initiative, civilian vessels that could transform into military platforms at a moment's notice. The program had been developed after several alien species had mistaken human commercial vessels for easy targets. The resulting diplomatic incidents had been messy. Sir, Lieutenant Emma Wong called from Tactical. Their shields are configured for dealing with capital ships. They're expecting heavy energy weapons, not our type of ordnance. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. The Krylonian commander's arrogance was about to cost him dearly. Send them another warning. I want this all on record. Krylonian vessel, this is your final warning. Your unprovoked attack on a civilian mining operation in neutral space has been logged and transmitted. Power down your weapons, or we will be forced to defend ourselves. On the main screen, the Eternal Glory's response came in the form of another energy blast. This time, the Deep Horizon didn't just deflect it. They absorbed it through their crystalline shield array, a technology the Krylonians clearly weren't familiar with. Well, Sarah sighed. We tried diplomacy. Battle stations, everyone. Let's show them why you don't mess with human ingenuity. The Deep Horizon's transformation was a sight to behold. Panels that appeared to be simple hull plating split apart, revealing weapon systems disguised as industrial equipment. The massive ore processing bays rotated, their magnetic accelerators now aimed at the Krylonian ship like the barrels of ancient naval cannons. They're trying to contact their command, Emma reported, her fingers dancing across her console. I'm jamming their long-range communications. They're on their own. Just like they wanted us to be, Sarah noted grimly. Engineering, are those penetrators ready? Loaded and locked, Cap. First salvo is recycled mining debris. Poetic, don't you think? Second wave will be the good stuff. Sarah keyed her ship-wide comm. All hands, this is the captain. Remember your training. We're not here to start a war, but we'll damn well finish this fight. Defensive positions only. Let's show these folks why attacking the human vessel is generally considered a career-limiting move. The Eternal Glory was launching fighters now, sleek craft that emerged from its hangar bays like angry insects. They clearly expected the mining vessel to be helpless against such an assault. "Let them get closer," Sarah ordered, watching the fighters approach. "Wong, prepare the point defense grid. Rodriguez, stand by with the magnetic pulse." The Krylonian fighters swooped in, energy weapons charging. At the last possible moment, Sarah gave the order. "Now." The deep horizons, or separators, activated, sending out a massive electromagnetic pulse that turned the fighters' delicate control systems into so much space junk. The small craft went spinning off into the asteroid field, their pilots struggling with suddenly unresponsive controls. "Direct hit on all fighters," Wong reported with professional satisfaction. "Their main ship is adjusting shield frequencies. They're learning." "Too late," Sarah replied. "Launch first wave of penetrators." The deep horizons processing bays hummed to life, but instead of collecting ore, they began launching chunks of processed metal at significant fractions of light speed. The projectiles slammed into the Eternal Glory's shields, which had been optimized for energy weapons, not kinetic impacts. "Their shields are already down to 60%, Wong reported. They really weren't expecting this kind of attack. Sarah watched as the Krylonian ship tried to maneuver, its captain finally realizing that he'd made a terrible mistake. But in the asteroid field, with debris all around them, the massive warship's options were limited. "They're powering up their main engines," Emma reported. "Looks like they're trying to retreat." "Oh no," Sarah said quietly. "You don't get to start a fight and then just walk away." She opened a channel to the Krylonian vessel. "Eternal Glory, this is Captain Chen again. Your engines are about to experience an unfortunate malfunction. Don't worry. We're a mining vessel, after all. We're very good at salvage operations." She nodded to Rodriguez, who activated their ship's true secret weapon. What appeared to be mineral scanners on the Deep Horizon's bow suddenly aligned, creating a focused beam of quantum disruption energy that played across the Eternal Glory's engine housing. The massive warship's engines sputtered and died, leaving it drifting in space. Sarah could almost imagine the look of shock on the Krylonian commander's face as his mighty vessel was disabled by what he dismissed as a simple mining ship. "All weapons, cease fire," she ordered. "Let's give them a moment to reconsider their life choices." She opened the channel again. "Eternal Glory, this is the Deep Horizon. We have disabled your engines and weapons. Your fighters are powerless but unharmed. Would you like to discuss the proper protocols for operating in neutral space, or should we continue this educational experience?" High Commander Zaxrel's scales had faded to an ashen gray as he watched his mighty warship drift powerless in space. Around him, his bridge crew worked frantically to restore power to their engines, but the quantum disruption from the human vessel had done its work well. "Impossible," he whispered, watching as the Deep Horizon maintained its position, its mining equipment still trained on his ship. "They're just miners. This can't be happening." "Sir," Val Nin reported, her voice carefully neutral. "Engineering reports the quantum field disruption is unlike anything they've seen before. The humans appear to have weaponized their mineral extraction technology." A new transmission cut through their internal communications. "This is Captain Chen again. I see you're having some trouble with your engines. As a registered mining and salvage vessel, we're obligated to offer assistance to ships in distress. Would you like us to help? We have extensive experience with breaking things down into smaller, more manageable pieces." The threat wasn't subtle. Zaxrel's mandibles clicked in agitation as he realized just how thoroughly he'd underestimated his opponent. "First Officer, what are our options?" "Limited, sir," Val Nin replied, calling up a tactical display. "Our shields are failing against their kinetic weapons. They appear to be using their ore processing systems to accelerate debris to relativistic speeds. Our defense systems were designed to counter energy weapons, not industrial equipment." On the screen, they watched as the Deep Horizon began a complex maneuver, using its magnetic systems to gather nearby asteroids into a defensive screen. What should have been a clumsy mining vessel moved with the precision of a warship, each movement calculated and efficient. "Sir," the sensor officer called out, "I'm detecting multiple power signatures activating within the asteroid field. They appear to be mining drones." Dozens of small craft emerged from hiding places within the asteroid field, each one originally designed for automated mineral extraction. But like their mothership, these were clearly more than simple mining units. "Those aren't drones," Val Nim said quietly. "They're automated weapon platforms, disguised as mining equipment. We're surrounded." The human captain's voice came through again, almost cheerful now. "I see you've noticed our support team. Standard mining operation. Always good to have backup when you're working in dangerous areas. Would you like a demonstration of their capabilities?" "That was titanium-rich ore," Captain Chen commented casually. "Excellent tensile strength. Imagine what it could do to your hull at these velocities. But of course, we'd never use our equipment that way, unless we had to." Zaxrel slumped in his command chair, the full weight of his mistake crushing down on him. He'd assumed that human mining vessels would be defenseless, easy targets. Instead, he'd attacked what appeared to be part of a carefully planned defensive system. "Sir," Val Nim reported, "we're receiving transmissions from multiple directions now. It appears our attack triggered some kind of alert network. More human ships are responding. More mining vessels." Zaxrel asked weakly. "Unknown, sir, but given what we've seen." She left the implications hanging in the air. The tactical display was updating now, showing new contacts emerging from hyperspace at the edges of the system. Each one was registered as a civilian vessel, cargo haulers, survey ships, even what appeared to be a fuel tanker. But after what they'd seen of the Deep Horizon's capabilities, those classifications meant nothing. Captain Chen's voice returned, this time with an edge of steel beneath the professional courtesy. "High Commander, your situation has become somewhat more complicated. My colleagues have arrived to assist with this unauthorized salvage attempt on your part. Perhaps we should discuss terms." Through the viewport, Zaxrel watched as the newly arrived human ships took up positions around his vessel. Each one began deploying what were officially listed as support drones and maintenance equipment. The Eternal Glory, pride of the Third Fleet, was now effectively surrounded by a swarm of repurposed industrial equipment that could tear it apart piece by piece. "The humans," Val Nim said quietly, "have turned their entire civilian infrastructure into a defense network. Every mining ship is a potential warship. Every cargo hauler could be carrying weapon platforms disguised as maintenance drones. We never saw it because we were looking for traditional military vessels." Zaxrel's scales shifted to the deep blue of resignation. "Open a channel to the human vessel," he ordered. "I believe it's time we discussed the proper procedures for operating in neutral space." "A wise choice," Captain Chen replied when his transmission went through. "Now, let's start with a review of Galactic Commerce Authority regulations regarding unprovoked attacks on civilian vessels. I find practical demonstrations tend to make these lessons more memorable, don't you?" The Krylonian High Council chamber was silent as the holographic recording played out. Zaxrel stood at attention, his scales now a sickly pale color, as the assembled council members watched his confrontation with the human mining vessel from multiple angles. The feeds had been provided by the Galactic Commerce Authority's investigation team, and they were damning in their clarity. Supreme Counselor Nexvarn, her ancient scales gleaming with bioluminescent patterns of fury, raised a clawed hand to pause the playback. "Explain to me, High Commander," she said, her voice carrying centuries of authority, "why you thought attacking a properly registered vessel in neutral space was worth risking our Empire's stability." "Supreme Counselor, I believed," Zaxrel began. "You believed," she interrupted, her bioluminescence flaring. "You believed that your pride was worth more than 10,000 years of carefully maintained diplomatic relations, that your personal desire for glory outweighed the Empire's treaties." The chamber's other council members stirred, their scales shifting through patterns of disapproval and anger. The recording continued to play silently in the background, showing the Deep Horizon's devastating response to his attack. Do you know what the humans call vessels like the Deep Horizon? Admiral Kexler spoke up from his seat. They call them wolves in sheep's clothing, a reference to one of their ancient parables. Every civilian ship in their space has military capabilities. Every mining laser can become a weapon. Every cargo hauler carries defensive systems disguised as maintenance equipment. He leaned forward, his battle-scarred scales reflecting the holographic light. We knew this. It was in every intelligence briefing for the past decade. Did you not read them, High Commander? Zaxrel's secondary breathing chambers constricted in shame. I believe they were exaggerating their capabilities. Exaggerating. A harsh laugh came from Counselor Vexthal, the head of Imperial Intelligence. The humans don't need to exaggerate. They turned their entire civilian fleet into a defense network because of commanders like you. Arrogant alien powers who saw their commercial vessels as easy targets. The Counselor activated a new hologram, showing various human vessels transforming from civilian configurations to military ones. They adapted. Instead of building an enormous standing fleet, they made every ship a potential defender. That mining vessel you attacked. It could have reduced the Eternal Glory to scrap metal for their processing plants. And now, Supreme Counselor Nexfarn said quietly, the humans have filed a formal complaint with the Galactic Commerce Authority. They're demanding reparations, public apologies, and a review of all our border protocols. She fixed Zaxrel with an ancient, unblinking stare. Do you know what they're not demanding, High Commander? Zaxrel shifted uncomfortably. No, Supreme Counselor. War. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. They're not demanding war, despite having every justification for it. Instead, they're treating this as a regrettable incident that can be resolved through diplomatic channels. Do you know why? Before Zaxrel could respond, Admiral Kexler answered for him. Because they don't need war to prove their point. Your failed attack did that for them. Every species in the galaxy has now seen how a single human mining vessel disabled one of our most powerful warships. Their message is clear. Attack our civilian ships at your own risk. The humans, Counselor Vexthal added, have sent us their terms for resolving this incident. Among other things, they're offering to share some of their civilian defense technology with us. His scales rippled with dark amusement. They suggest it might help prevent future misunderstandings. Supreme Counselor Nexfarn rose from her seat, her massive form towering over Zaxrel. You will be stripped of your rank, of course. The humans have specifically requested that you be reassigned to cultural exchange duties. They feel you would benefit from a more comprehensive understanding of their species. Zaxrel's scales went almost white. Cultural exchange. You can't. We can, and we will, she snapped. You will spend the next 5 years on their primary mining colony, learning exactly why attacking human vessels is considered an act of terminal stupidity. Consider yourself fortunate. A century ago, such an attack would have led to war. The humans have grown more diplomatic, though no less capable. She turned to address the full council. Let this incident serve as a reminder. The humans do not think like us. They do not build mighty warships to display their power. Instead, they turn their miners into warriors, their merchants into defenders, and their entire society into a weapon that activates only when threatened. Admiral Kexler nodded gravely. They have a saying, speak softly and carry a big stick. We would do well to remember it. Their civilian ships are the soft words, and we've just been reminded of the stick. 6 months later, the Deep Horizon drifted through a different asteroid field, its mining lasers carefully carving through mineral-rich rock. On its bridge, Captain Sarah Chen watched as a familiar figure awkwardly managed the mineral analysis console, his iridescent scales now decorated with the simple markings of a cultural exchange officer. Former High Commander Zaxrel, she called out, trying not to smile. You're falling behind on your scanning patterns. Remember, efficiency is crucial in mining operations. The Krylonian's scales flickered with embarrassment as he adjusted his work. Yes, Captain Chen. My apologies. He'd learned quickly that human mining crews valued competence over rank or species. Sarah walked over to his station, checking his work. You're learning. Though I'm still not sure why you specifically requested assignment to my ship for your cultural exchange duties. Zaxrel's scales shifted to a thoughtful blue. I believed I needed to understand. 6 months ago, I thought I was attacking a helpless mining vessel. Instead, I learned that humans don't believe in helpless vessels. An expensive lesson, Sarah noted, remembering the battle. The eternal glory had required 3 months of repairs after that encounter. But a valuable one, Zaxrel admitted. My people build dedicated warships, mighty vessels meant to display our power. But humans. He gestured at the bridge around them, where industrial equipment concealed military-grade systems. You turned everything into a potential defense. Every civilian ship, every mining operation, every trade route becomes part of your security network. Sarah nodded, pleased by his understanding. We learned early that we couldn't match other species in traditional fleet actions, so we adapted, made every civilian vessel capable of defending itself, turned our industrial infrastructure into a defensive grid. It's brilliant, Zaxrel admitted. And terrifying. No one can tell which human ships are truly civilian and which are more. Attack one, and you risk facing them all. The bridge crew worked around them, the humans and aliens moving in practiced coordination. In the months since the incident, the Deep Horizon had become part of a joint human-Krylonian mining initiative, a diplomatic solution that served multiple purposes. Incoming transmission from Control, Lieutenant Wong announced. The new Krylonian mining fleet is arriving for their training rotation. Sarah pulled up the display, showing a dozen Krylonian vessels entering the system. Each one had been modified with human technology, part of the technology-sharing agreement that had followed the incident. Your people adapt quickly, she told Zaxrel. Those ships are already incorporating our dual-use systems. The Empire is learning, he replied carefully. We're beginning to understand why humans emphasize adaptation over raw power. Your approach to defense, turning civilian infrastructure into a protective network, it's more efficient than maintaining massive war fleets. An alert sounded from his console, another rich mineral deposit detected. Sarah watched as Zaxrel correctly configured the mining lasers, the same weapons that had once defended against his attack now peacefully cutting through rock under his control. You know, she said thoughtfully, there's an old human saying, the best weapon is the one you never have to fire. Our ships aren't armed because we want war. They're armed because we want peace. Zaxrel's scales shifted to show understanding, and anyone who might consider attacking knows that every human vessel, no matter how harmless it appears, could be a formidable opponent. Exactly, Sarah smiled, though some learned that lesson harder than others. The former High Commander's scales flushed with embarrassment again. Speaking of lessons, Captain, I've been studying human history. Your species has a remarkable talent for turning civilian technology into defensive systems. The merchant ships that became privateers, fishing boats that became submarine hunters. We adapt, Sarah said simply. It's what humans do. And now your people are learning to adapt too. Those new mining ships out there, they're not just better defended. They're more efficient at actual mining. Turns out military-grade precision tools are pretty good for civilian work too. Through the viewport, they could see the Krylonian ships beginning their training maneuvers, learning to operate their hybrid vessels. Each one represented a step toward a new understanding between their species. 6 months ago, Zaxrel said quietly, I thought I was teaching humanity a lesson about power. Instead, humanity taught the Empire a lesson about wisdom. His scales shifted to a pattern Sarah had learned to recognize as wry amusement. Though I could have done with a less personal teaching method. The best lessons, Sarah replied, returning to her captain's chair, are the ones we learn the hard way. Now, let's show your people's mining fleet how humans do things. Wong, signal the fleet. Training exercise Alpha 7. Let's demonstrate proper asteroid field maneuvering. As the Deep Horizon moved to join the training fleet, Sarah reflected on how much had changed. What had started as an act of aggression had led to cooperation, understanding, and mutual respect. The Empire had learned that humanity's strength lay not in mighty warships, but in their ability to turn every civilian vessel into a potential defender. And one humbled Krylonian officer had learned the most important lesson of all: never underestimate a human mining ship.